please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
In India for several decades now, almost 75 years, has been playing a very crucial role in India's aviation sector. It's become almost ubiquitous in the Indian skies. But it's really in the last 4 or 5 years where we've seen their business grow manifold. So many would say Boeing is in a historical sweet spot. Okay, there is, the transformation is underway, but there is a lot of work and a lot of potential going forward. So what do we expect going forward? Well, that's the job I have this evening, to put that question to Prat and Jenette. So thank you very much, both of you, for joining us this evening. Prat, if I could perhaps start with you. You set the context about this conference, 2-day event. What's the big takeaway? What are you hoping for at the end of tomorrow?
Well, Ron, when you look across the globe, we are not only looking at markets where you can sell our products, but also looking for places where we can find sources of competitiveness. And India is one of those places across the world where we think we can find tremendous competitiveness. So that's why we're here. As you said, we kicked off the first edition of Supply Conference in 2015. Since then, we have tripled our sourcing in India. We really hit the stride in terms of finding partners who can deliver at world-class quality, partners who are embedded in our global supply chain. That stride has reached an inflection point today where we feel that we can scale it up significantly. So we thought this is the time for us to bring our supply partners together to have a conversation about not only our strategy and how we're going to take it forward, but also reflect on the journey we have come for the last 2.5 years. To reflect on what are the lessons learned. You saw some of that in Ashwini's slides. Yeah. Because that continuous learning makes us better, makes India even more competitive. And you hear very often, how do you create an ecosystem for aerospace and defense manufacturing in India? We are germinating that right here in this room.
Absolutely.
So that's why we're here, to really kind of hit the inflection point and really take off from the knee and take off to the future, where India truly becomes an integral part of the global aerospace and defense supply chain.
Well, that's a great statement to start the proceedings, Prat. There are over 100 suppliers, I'm told, in this room. Jenette, let me turn to you now, because Boeing is known for its complex, multi-layered, multi-tiered supply chain. It's become part of several case studies around the world. So tell me a little bit about the global vision. I mean, how do you see the global supply chain for Boeing at this point in time, and where does India fit in to that?
Well, I don't know if there's anything more complicated than cricket. Okay, so we'll have to talk about that a little bit later. But our Boeing global supply chain is extensive, as you have already stated, and India plays a vital role in our global ecosystem. And I think most important for me, and I've only had the privilege of visiting many of your factories a couple of times to this country, and I think there's a great amount of talent. But your vital role is really because of the potential that we see in this country. Boeing today, when you think about our businesses are extensive. They expand through the commercial aircraft as well as defense and our services. And we certainly thank you for your partnership, but when I walk through the factories and I see your people and the strategy that you have so clearly laid out, make in India, upskill, and also to design and start up in India, I think you've laid out a very clear strategy for the country. And Boeing believes in you and your potential. And I've seen it throughout the years as we've partnered through various projects. And I think there's more potential going forward. So vital partner in our global ecosystem.
Vital partner in your global ecosystem. You mentioned the defense business also. I was speaking to somebody in Boeing, and they mentioned that in the last 8-9 years, the overall business side has grown to $12-13 billion for Boeing, and that's a remarkable growth. But before I go back to Prat, Jenette, considering that it's your supply chain, you're sourcing from over 100 countries around the world, it would also sort of work because as part of your hedging strategy, right? Because you want to sort of diversify your risks. so that if there is any issue in one country, you have other countries to fill up that. So talk to me about the strategic rationale behind this massive diversification of sourcing.
Well, certainly, as we've been throughout the world, and I'd like to thank my team for being here today. I think having as many Boeing people here in the room today, hopefully for all of you as potential suppliers, displays our sense of commitment to the potential that's here in the country. And so I think that, the Boeing company, we find that the collaboration, the innovation can lead to accelerating further potential suppliers. And I've given several presentations where I've talked about diversity of our supply chain, the diversity of thought. And for here in this country in particular, with your growth, your innovation and technology, I think there is a potential to really quite not just innovate in terms of product, but innovate in terms of the ecosystem that builds the product. And what I mean by that is our advanced manufacturing.
Yeah.
And we spoke of this a little bit earlier about what does advanced manufacturing actually mean? And clarifying that with each other, I think is critical. So it's not just about the machine or the equipment, it's how we build it together, the digital layer, the sensoring technology that's currently being installed. I think when we talk about advanced manufacturing, it's no longer just automation, it's no longer just modularization or even our digital engineering. It's really how do we pull all of that together and have a single thread end to end in our supply chain into our factories. So that is the definition of the future in terms of advanced manufacturing. And I think that India certainly has the potential to play a key role in that.
You've articulated that very clearly, because advanced manufacturing could mean different things to different people. So I think you've brought everybody on the same page. But Prat, let's come to, you've got so many now partners in India. Of course, with Tata, as your business is more entrenched, you have a joint venture company with them. You're working with Bharat Forge, Hindustan Aeronautics. How has the evolution been?
Well, and it's been really a great journey. We started dipping our toe in the water almost a decade ago. We started with HAL making doors for 757. But it was at a low burn rate. We really sped up our involvement and accelerated this really in the last 3 to 4 years. So if you look at it last 4 years, we have quadrupled our source in India. So you can see the acceleration happening then. And really, the driving force behind that is readiness of industrial base in India. This base has invested quite a bit in the capabilities. They've worked with us to really find the specific skills for aerospace manufacturing. A lot of the companies in this room are very successful in automotive domain, right? As you know, automotive, the gold standard is Six Sigma, which by definition accepts few defects for a few parts per million, right? So there is a little bit of a journey to make from automotive aerospace. So it looks like a small step from automotive to aerospace, but actually it's a giant leap.
It's a giant leap,
right? So it requires a huge amount of cultural transformation. It requires capabilities in systems, quality investments, in skilling the frontline workforce about quality to get to zero defect. And that investment this base has made. And that has allowed them to earn our business, right? There's no free lunch in the world, right? They have demonstrated the capability, they delivered quality, cost, on-time delivery. And because of that, we have this confidence of Jenette and the supply chain team to place more work.
In a sense, you've preempted my question because traditionally the aerospace has been the domain of the public sector enterprises. It's only more recently that private sector has opened up, and they've had to make this massive transformation from being suppliers to automobile companies now to to advanced defense, advanced manufacturing. So talk to me a little about this. When you speak with them, how do you think that they manage to sort of transform, and especially with the fact that there is zero tolerance for defects? How do you think, when you speak with them, what do you take out of them? How have they managed to sort of, position themselves in a way in which that they're able to bring down their defects to zero?
Right, and I think it really gets back to the immense appetite for learning, right? So it's an acquired skill. Going from Six Sigma to zero defect manufacturing is really about your process, systems, technology, and culture. So they have worked on that systematically, and they have really co-opted our supply chain experts and subject matter experts part of the journey. So as Ashri showed some slides, we have invested quite a bit in skill development, and our partners, our supplier partners, have invested in that by opening their shop floor, because you can only do as much in classrooms. A lot of the skill development actually happens on the shop floor. Right. So they have co-invested in that. They have invested in people's skills development in terms of specific skills. How do you get to zero defect? The journey has not been painless. It has gone through a few bumps. But finally, we hit a stride where we feel that they got the basic DNA for what it takes to be an aerospace supplier. And I would add one more thing. It's not just about public and private. It's both. In our supply chain, we have private companies who are in the room. We have public companies who are in the room. Right. So we really think that to optimize, to deliver the maximum outcome for India, we got to be both public and private. It's not either or, it's both.
In fact, I'm going to come back to the point on quality, because that said in Ashwini's slide that's one of the areas that there's still some room for improvement. But Jenette, you're here, and the big announcement today is, of course, what Boeing and TAL. Ashwini just made that announcement. Boeing and TAL. Ashwini just made that announcement. 13,000 floor beams have already been successfully supplied. What does this now mean? How important is this order? And what does it also mean for Boeing's sort of business relationship with your suppliers in India?
Well, I think we're really at a tipping point. And that great award is an illustration of the potential of scaling business. So I think, as Prat had mentioned, over the last decade, we've been learning from each other. I've had the honor of hosting you in our factories, and then you've hosted us. And so with that collaboration, we're learning from each other about our processes, about our language. And now, throughout the decade, we've learned that not only do you have the potential, but you've proven capability. And as many of you continue to grow in interest, and our aerospace business in the world tends to attract a little bit of participation. You may well know that our business in the next, just look through the next decade, we have over $7 trillion worth of business that we intend to go capture. So as the Boeing company looks at the addressable market for aircraft and defense, we find that we need to be able to scale with new partners. And so I think, again, we're at that tipping point where we've learned there's an ecosystem here. We have a stronger in-country team. Prat, Ashwani, the team here has just developed a great skill set to make sure that we understand the details of the value stream. So in our business, details really matter. Details about quality. But I'd also just add that our expectations are also for a balanced business. And so when we think about the performing business, it's how do we keep our people safe? So safety is an element of performance, not just quality. On-time delivery, but also predictive and proactive views of our collaboration. So that proactive communication is so important. And that it's okay to clarify. It's okay that we don't have to assume what we're speaking to each other. And a balanced view of performance is so critical. And then I think the last thing I would add to that, I was so impressed with some of the factories that I've been to where your post-processing has been clearly with the environment in mind. So as you're looking to advance the industry in India, as you're thinking about your infrastructure, I see elements of you thinking about a sustainable environment. And so that is advanced thinking that I'm really pleased to see in country.
Prat, Ashwini mentioned this is the biggest manufacturing contract. So could you help quantify this, the announcement between Boeing and TAL?
Well, unfortunately, the commercial details we don't throw out in the public domain.
Okay.
But all I can tell you is that it's substantial, it's long-term, it's game-changing.
You can say a little bit more in terms of, I'm sure if you try a little harder, there might be some more information.
It's multi-hundred million.
It's a multi-hundred. See, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Multi-$100 million. All right. You know, Jenette, since you mentioned the potential and, you know, the unique opportunity Indian suppliers have to sort of address the market and, you know, the business that's going to come out of Boeing in the coming years, currently it's $1 billion. That has tripled in the last few years. Any number that you may have internally set for yourself or in that you expect from sourcing from India going forward? I'll take that to Prat as well. Okay, Prat, you want to go first?
I am
Yes.
very hungry. I want as we can get, right?
Right.
It's really, we don't really set internal targets as such, right? You know, we want to accelerate as much as we thought about creating capacity to above the kind of work we're going to put here, right? So, you know, who would have thought? If I told you that we're going to quadruple in last, 3 years ago, somebody would have laughed at me that you were smoking to me, right? So I am not here to say set targets. We just want to get ready to deliver what's expected from a business performance point of view. And as long as we're delivering, you know, Jenette is very kind to, put more work here. So I am here to work with our supplier partners to make sure they're ready to capture as much share of our spend as possible.
He's not giving me a number, Jenette, but if you could, what is your message to the team in India?
Well, here's how I think about it. The Boeing company has aspirations to grow significantly. And just in terms of numbers, let's just say we want to double the size of the company. And so it's not just about moving work from here and there, it's that we're trying to grow our business. And so I think I have great hope and, aspirations for the country to grow with us. So I gave you a little number there.
Double. Yeah, as a financial journalist, numbers matter a lot to us. But Jenette, you've been in Boeing for 29, 30 years now, and with your overall global experience, what would your larger message be to the suppliers? As India, even as a government, we've been trying to, we've been unveiling and unleashing a lot of these programs to make India more competitive. But if you were to look at India more strategically, what are maybe the 2 or 3 key areas that you would think that India perhaps will have to work upon to become even more competitive?
So here's maybe an observation. I think India has incredible talent, incredible thinking, but I think it runs the full spectrum. So on one hand, you have your Jugaad and your hackathons. Did I say that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did I say that right? Okay, so I've learned a new
for most of you who may not know, it means
word.
frugal engineering. And
so then there's also this matter of discipline. And, in manufacturing, especially the principles of lean manufacturing, the discipline and process is incredibly important as a baseline to running the business. And so I see both ends of the spectrum, but I would just suggest as you install lean principles and standard work, that discipline is so incredibly important to quality, and then you can innovate on top of that. So I think the potential, not just the potential, but the challenge that we have today is how do we manage both ends of the spectrum, because you have talent, certainly talent to go both ways. And in the age of technology, where we're changing rapidly every year, how do we transform our businesses in a disciplined manner so that we continue to operate with the highest quality in mind? So quality first, I think first. Then there's also this technology application. How does that happen faster in more innovative ways? I've suggested to some of your businesses that you're in the best position to really integrate the system and to showcase and be a model for a factory of the future. So we, whether you call it manufacturing 4.0 or industry 4.0 or Internet of Things in your factory, I think we have to clarify that, but more important, not just in language, but how it actually operates in the factory. I think that is a really great challenge in front of us.
Before we wrap this up, then maybe I could request both of you. Then maybe Jenette, if I could start with you. Your larger message now, to the suppliers as they go back home tomorrow after this 2-day conference. What are the 3 or 4 things that you would hope that that you would want them to reflect upon?
Well, first, I would just really like to express our appreciation. We're grateful for your interest in working with Boeing, not just by being here, but being so willing to come visit us and invite us to your location. So first message would be, thank you. Please continue to do that and tell your story. Now, the second message I would like to leave you with is there is tremendous opportunity in front of us. And not only in terms of the business, but the potential for new product in the future, where technology is really going to, I think, going to have an inflection point in aerospace.
Prat, your final message, things that you expect, and some of the deliberations, we're going to hear more of it over the next 2 days, but 2 or 3 key things that you want them to go back home with?
I would say it's about skill, it's about scale, it's about partnership, it's about winning together. We are here together to capture this great opportunity which just Jenette highlighted. I think that we are in a great industry. We are in the best company in this industry. We are in the perfect time at the cusp of a great acceleration, and we are in the right geography.
Prat, Jenette, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Prat, thank you so much, and thank you very much, everybody.